Alrighty, whoever you are, wherever you are, I'm here, and we're gonna hang out for a little while. Just have to see what happens. I should probably get yeah. I'm a little tired, if you can't tell. But, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right. Got water. What's up, everybody? How's it going? How is it going? Tell me how you were doing. I'm always embarrassed because I put my towel up here and that just looks sloppy, doesn't it? Like, move it over here. There we go. There we go. All right, there's 4 of you. Greetings, everybody. How's it going? Tell me. Tell me how you are. It is a Friday evening, and that's exciting because that means that, honestly, I don't have to go to school tomorrow. And that's always exciting, I think. Good to see you. Where are you going to the washroom today? Oh, yeah, some doofus named Brian Williams. Whoever that is. Although you don't seem like a doofus. You seem like a very curious cat. A very curious cat. You've got like a brain as your profile picture, which, immediately has me very intrigued. Sorry, BW is what I meant. B-dubs, See, try to make sure I acknowledge everyone who said hello. Hello, Tennessee. How are you? Warminster. Why a cat? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, probably, let's be honest. I don't know about you guys. As much as I love dogs, I feel like I can relate to cats more. Oh. Hello, Coral. How are you? You always seem so appreciative with your comments. I appreciate them. Coral Cooney. Cooney, that's a fun last name. Cooney. Well, I don't have a whole lot for you. I was just showing up for a little get-together, and I wanted to, say hello, give you a brief life update. Things are looking pretty promising for me academically. Phew, I kind of been lucking out, it feels like. But, maybe God has a hand at this too. But looks like I'm going to be able to get the grades, I think, that are necessary. How do you get your hair to do that thing in the front? This right here? I think I use hair gel, a little hair gel. And it's also kind of curly, I've got curly hair. Genetics probably, right? You've got the hair God gave you, and, for me it's poofy. So I've got like a fro when it isn't short, but it's nice and short because when I visited home last, I got a nice clean cut. And here I am. A little shorter on the sides, a little longer in the front, and you go, fro. Thank you. Makes me think of that one movie. I can't quite remember it, but there's this, what is it? It's like in the 80s, and there's this famous character, and he's like, you mess with the fro, you've got to go, Does anyone remember that? It's like a comedy. It's a fun one. I haven't watched like a good comedy in a long time. Well, I think it's pretty cool that I've got 7 of you so quickly. In the past, when I randomly stream, I don't get as much attention. That's so thanks. I feel kind of special. So just a little bit, just kind of, Brian asks, I was wondering if you think the Enneagram is more accurate than the MBTI. I know the MBTI well, but I feel like the Enneagram is really good for those who know it well. almost more telling than personality types. Right. Personally, I think that you can approach personality in one of two ways. I like to do both because I think it's important to be able to communicate to people in ways that they actually understand. So, probably most research psychologists would use something like the Big Five factor model to ascertain people's core, you could say, traits. And traits are things that are relatively stable over time, regardless of what environment you may be in. And those could include like extroversion, which is like dopaminergic activity, reward activity in the brain, negative emotion, uh, conscientiousness, openness, and agreeableness. So that to me is how we identify traits. Now, when we look at the Enneagram and the MBTI, we're looking at more of a psychoanalytic model, I would say. Psychoanalytic, they both have sort of root and foundations in these kind of sort of ideas about there being ego structures. And those ego structures have traits, right? And those traits can be really well um, sort of understood using something like the Big Five factor model, because that's an analysis of personality using language. So we have all the language we need using the Big Five factor model. But when I think we try to understand personality at its core, we have to look at the patterns of the traits, right? And I think the Enneagram is great for that. I think the MBTI is great for that. Which one is better? It depends. I think the Enneagram is a bit easier for people to grasp and understand. Um, excuse me. whereas, excuse me. Whereas typology can go, I think, much deeper. It's much more complex. Thinking about the cognitive functions, for example, and how there are introverted and extroverted functions. Thank you. I appreciate it, you guys. Now, if you're someone who wants to say bless you when someone sneezes, you might be agreeable, right? So that's a good example of a trait for agreeableness. I personally think that for therapeutic purposes, that the Enneagram is probably the most useful. But if you really want to understand someone's personality, like really understand someone's personality, I would say look at the Big Five first, and then look at all the other theories. And then use, you could say, the language of the Big Five to communicate really to the ego, to the person's primary way of coping. You can use certain words, even patterns of words. Like as a 9, I say beauty, beauty, connection. These words, they resonate with me very deeply. They speak to my core sort of pattern. But these are high openness traits, right? So, these things overlap is kind of the primary thing I think that needs to be understood, is that while we have a core pattern, we are very malleable, right, within that pattern. I think that's kind of what makes life special. We can step into and take on these kind of, you could say, psychological roles. But we can always sort of play with life. We can give certain aspects of our personality out to the world, and then we can receive, other aspects. And it's that, I think that's what makes humans so special. We're capable of that. We don't have to bow to the ego completely, if that makes sense. I don't know if that really answered your question, but now you kind of have a sense of why I like to use all of the theories together. I think another reservation I have with psychoanalytic models is the notion that maybe we aren't as free as we think we are. But I think it's important to understand that we are free people, and that as irrational as we are, we should aspire to certain ideals that can be understood using our reason. Maybe that's the one pattern, if you know anything about the type 1. But it is very important to me, that sense of looking at the world in light of value judgments. I think I always think that the personality structures that people have are always there to serve, you could say, a bigger personality. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. That's all I got. That is all I got. Yes, high openness. So I'm going to try to keep this relatively short because I'm kind of tired and I need to at least try to read a little bit of this. I need above a 92 on my final test to get an A. And that's kind of stressful because tests aren't always fair, you know? But, you know, you do what you can. Let's see. I just got another message. Rusty Cage. As an INFP, what is your perception of extroverted feeling? Ah. I actually made a video a while back. If you look for it, you can find it. In that video, I really give you a really solid, sort of really holistic understanding of the way that introverted feeling responds to extroverted feeling and vice versa. I haven't, but a friend of mine just did. I hope you enjoy it. He really did. Yeah, should be fun. But I think extroverted feeling is very, very endearing. It warms me up. It's like if I'm cold, extroverted feeling is like a blanket, and it kind of makes me feel really cozy. But at the same time, extroverted feeling is sort of like this thing that like doesn't give me real security, you know? It just kind of is this like nice thing that is there. I don't think I can wrap my head around it completely. Um, Really, in my video, I discuss self-monitoring, which is a psychological measure for basically, I think, modesty, and how extroverted feelers are very much attuned to the way people are responding to them in the social environment. You can think of this as trait agreeableness, but in light of the subcomponent politeness, within agreeableness, you have basically two dimensions. You have compassion and politeness. I am extremely high in compassion. I am not nearly as high in politeness. When I think of an extroverted feeler, I think of really politeness at its core. It's a sense of obedience to the other and how they are responding in the moment emotionally, and showing visibly that they are really taking on that person's feelings. I think as empathic as I am, I don't show people, you know, immediately that I really like am sensitive. Something I have to work on. Hey, Stephanie Samlin. I appreciate that. I admire INFJs very, very much. So you are a special person. I really appreciate you letting me know how much you enjoy it. I, you know, I have a really special connection, I think, with INFJs because of my brother, who's essentially I've been very close to for most of my life, and he also is an INFJ. So that introverted intuition is just marvelous. It's marvelous. Jason on Earth says a 2002 comedy called Undercover Brother. He says about the Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. I'm glad you could recognize it. You were adopted. Aren't you lucky? I need to adopt an INFJ. Yeah, I think introverted feeling is like sort of stubborn, you know, in the way it relates to people, and that can look different for different circumstances. But introverted feeling is not gonna. Introverted feeling isn't the nice guy. Like as nice as like the nice guy can be. The nice guy is extroverted feeling. Like that's the nice guy, you know. Introverted feeling is sort of like very gentle, you know, but also very very cold in the way that it shows up, I think. Yeah. I think they have different roles in the tribe, you know. Rusty, yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I like that idea, being productive for my YouTube children. That's so weird. Except you're adults, you know? Most of you. Well, maybe you're young. I don't really know my demographic, but I know you're predominantly women, I think. Most INFPs are girls, so. It's so funny how that works. You know, you've got like the very masculine YouTube people and the very feminine YouTube people and the different types of YouTube cultures. You know, YouTube's a very, very interesting place. All these little niches and crannies on YouTube, you know. I wonder if I can find a place on YouTube. I don't know. But so far it's been very, very special. Right, Rusty, I really encourage you to watch my video where I discuss that. I talk about how FI can sort of see FE as histrionic. If you think about the type B cluster personality disorders, I think really those personality disorders embody like an overwhelming sort of arrogance or pride. And I think FE can sort of look like that. Whereas I think FI can be very, very sort of like self-consumed, and like hot and cold, you know, like I don't know, like not nearly as ebullient and charismatic, you know. Virtual oxytocin. Goodness gracious, please give me more. Speaking of oxytocin, FE is in the building, everybody. So I hope you feel appreciated. Hey, we are childlike at times. I'm older than you. Ask Joey some good questions. Let him be useful. Note that you are a tool. It's okay. I can be a tool. I am a tool. I think, you know, I think in some sense I can look kind of like a tool sometimes, you know, but like I don't mean to be. I had someone tell me that I looked like a Chad once. Does anyone know what that means? Chad. Oh goodness, I am not culturally aware of these things. What are your thoughts on astrology? I am very reluctant to go too deep into it. Is that what that means? Okay, well I'll take it then. Astrology is not something I know a whole lot about. I do understand that astrology can be very much prone to confirmation bias. So we can sort of confirm our own beliefs about ourselves with something like that. So we need to do our best, I think, to be as objective as we can with typing and personality. You can't be that objective, though. I think that's why astrology is so popular, because people do genuinely enjoy sort of the subjective aspect of these things. Yeah, you're funny. Could be opening a can of worms here, but what do you think about the biopsychosocial model? What a question. What a great question, actually. I really think that's such a great question. Maybe more specifically in regards to how it's applied today. I feel like the social aspect of it is downplayed. Yes, I think you are. You're not just projecting, although you might be projecting slightly. You're the one who's attuned to the social sort of domain, which is extremely important, I think. biopsychosocial model is, I think, this political kind of idea. I think when people talk about the biopsychosocial model, they're trying to basically say they're giving people comprehensive treatment and they're considering all these factors, but I think that generally speaking, that is not the case. So I think you're right. Do I like the idea of it if that was how we sort of looked at the world as, I think, as like a psychiatric professional, but um, as a general rule, I see the biology as intimately connected to relationship and culture. Those are so important. That's a very important point, I think, for people to understand, is that the brain is a product of its culture and that it develops in relationships. And those relationships are always sort of giving and taking and molding the person, into who they become. Like right now, we're molding each other, we're influencing each other. And I'm kind of fortunate to have a place of influence really right now in this relationship. So it's interesting when you start thinking about the fact that we do kind of open ourselves up to different psychological and cultural forces, and that these really, really do shape who we become. So it's important to understand that. Stephanie says, introverted feeling is very mysterious to me, being an extroverted feeler user. Interesting. I catch whiffs of what is going on. Whiffs. You can smell it? You can smell that stubborn obsession with values. But I know I will never see more than the most basic sketches, and that helps me get a rough sketch. You should sketch it and then show us what you see. Maybe do a drawing or something, or write a short story. You are a 4, after all. Maybe you can help us understand what you think it is. What do you think of Jordan Peterson's MBTI type? Honestly, I thought about that for a while, to be honest. I was thinking, like, at one point ENTP, then I was thinking INFJ. He's so conscientious, but he's so open. It's so hard to type someone like that. I mean, they're really blending all those traits together. But when you think about his overwhelming agreeableness, too, you can't help but think that this guy probably has feeling. So I would say INFJ. That's really what I wanted him to be. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think he is? Or ENFJ, maybe. No, that's the thing. He's so extroverted. He's not an I then. Yeah. ENT. Shit, I don't know. This is hard. What do you think? Rusty, I think that's a really good conjecture. I like that. I think see, that's the thing. Like, this guy's obsessed with the metaphysic, but he's very extroverted. So how I can he be, But yeah, I think you're right. The TI is evident. To human is to be a piece of clay. We are forever being molded to our last breath. Yes, indeed. Indeed. I like that. I like that imagery with clay. I like to think of children as wet clay. They're like so moldable. You can mold them. There's a lot of responsibility with respect to children because they are so easily molded, Interesting, so you agree. Looks like we all think he's probably an INFJ. Interesting. Yeah, it's funny. That was my initial sort of inclination. I thought, here's a guy who is so sensitive, so interested in ideas, but at the same time, like, clearly is just living in an abstract world. I mean, he's not a lead feeler. He's academic as all hell. This guy is intuitive. It does seem like he does respond in an extroverted feeling way, though. So I think I can get on board with that. I agree with you, by the way, about Jordan Peterson annoying you. As someone who is very, very agreeable, Jordan Peterson can be very, very, you could say, disagreeable in the way he communicates his ideas. He can be very domineering as well. I don't do well with that style. It's just not my style, but I respect it. So he's also kind of neurotic, I think at his worst, he's a very anxious person, and I can only handle that so long. The things Jordan Peterson, okay, I think what he has to say is very valuable, but you have to be ready to hear it. If you just listen to him and you're not ready to take in what he's saying, then you're not going to be able to appreciate him. And I think most people probably don't take in what he's saying. He says a lot, and he goes very, very deep. And you can hear what he says, but it's the difference between hearing it and then taking it in, making the connections. I think. Ron Gladden. Yeah, I can see that. Kind but rude. I wonder why they think you're rude. Rude as in like you're aloof or something. Yeah, he could be an ENTP, but he's got, either way, he's got that intuition function that's sort of there, dominating his personality. Speaking of which, why has he become so popular? I think that's a very interesting topic. How do we, understand how someone like Jordan Peterson can grow to this level of fame as an academic? I think people have. I think that in our culture, there's a lack. There's a lack of male role models. There's a lack of clearly articulated masculinity, and I think that he sort of has taken upon himself sort of this archetypal sort of role of a father for a lot of young men. I don't know if you agree, but I think that's what he does. Exactly. There's like this missing piece, right, in our society, and the missing piece in a lot of ways is a respect for masculinity, and I think that it represents itself in the way that men consume media and video games and you name it. It's interesting stuff. It's very interesting stuff. That's exactly it, Ron. There's a very serious crisis. I was actually listening to just recently. I was listening to a podcast from one of my favorite psychiatrists. His name's Dr. Peter Breggin, and he was speaking with a social psychologist who is familiar with the literature on basically male performance in academia and how men are very much falling behind women pretty much in all areas of professional life, and that it's sort of presenting a dilemma now for women, because women want to be with men who are, you could say, at their level, education wise and financial wise. So it's a very interesting idea. Also, I think it's like 90% of people in special education are men, and it's because of learning disabilities and prescriptions that are being written for stimulant medication and are largely being given to young boys because of their distractibility. And in my view, this is very tragic. We are really stifling boyhood and this important period of development that really teaches men how to relate to other men and just society, really. I was also listening to Roy Baumeister give a talk, and he was talking about how he thinks men think in groups, whereas women think more one to one, and that there's different kinds of social and emotional intelligence. And he thinks basically that we have ignored the competencies of the masculine sort of emotional processing system, and that it is a social system. It's just not focused on these intimate sort of alliances. It's how can I have some kind of social status, really, and then work within the tribe to maintain that, to serve the women and the children. I mean, it makes sense, right? Um, but we've kind of like we haven't thought a whole lot about that role, um, as being something that needs to be highlighted. Let's see. Male role models. Yes, the changes in feminism brought our redefinition of femininity with a roadmap. Yeah, I can see that. You'll never believe me, but I once saw the Zingy IFP down 32 ounces of agua. Just because probably peer pressure. Hilarious. Are you making fun of me? Yeah, you are. Thank you. Whenever he drank from... I need water. I'm really hot. You know? Honestly, I should probably fill this up and down another one. It'd be good for me. I've been trying to like wake up and then drink like a whole thing, like as like a routine in the morning. It's a very it does something for me psychologically. Yeah, thoughts on feminism. Feminism is I think a way for women to assert some kind of control in some sense. And but I think basically I think feminism is a reaction to women feeling like their femininity cannot be expressed in the way I think it needs to be expressed. Um, I think that a lot of times people try to talk about men and women having equal, you could say, rights and outcomes and things like that, with like pay, for example, etc. But I deeply believe that men and women are very different. Obviously, there are, you could say, extremes. There's always a bell curve, you know? But you have to understand that men and women relate to the world in different ways, and I think it's rooted in biology. And there are extremes, and we have to respect those extremes. But we also have to think about the well being of women, the well being of families. Family health is where our mental health takes root. There's really no other way to create a healthy society than to support motherhood and healthy, you could say, alliances between women and feminine sort of really just healthy femininity. And healthy femininity will never be about um, being like a man, you know, or you know, it gets really complicated when you start to make them into the same thing because then you don't have the feminine and the masculine relating. I think in the way that promotes harmony. As a nine, at least, I can feel that deeply. I can feel that really deep sense of receptivity that is feminine, and I can understand the importance of really going going outwards into the world and sort of gathering resources, or you could say taking risks, etc. I think men and women can take on both of those traits. It does not matter which sex you are, but I do think biology largely does form our temperament, and therefore we really shouldn't ignore that. So I don't know if that really helped. I'm kind of tired. I'm probably not giving you the best answers. Yeah, a disease. I think it is. You're right. Inferior SE. Oh, that's funny. INFPs have a harder time in uni because they feel constrained. You're telling me right now. I'm in a freaking nursing program. Conformity 101. That's what it is. But I think you're right, and I've sort of told myself that I need to follow the rules, I need to get licensed, I need to play the game so that I can have the really that sense of autonomy that really drives me. You know, I am very, very driven by being able to do my own thing. So, school was so much School, at least at this point, has very little to do with thinking. Really thinking about the world and asking the types of questions that could make the world a better place. There are systems in place and they work well for what they do. But if those systems are short sighted, if those systems forget about the dignity of life, etc., then if we propagate these broken systems. And I think we need to be aware of these broken systems, you know? Is it admiration though? I appreciate your admiration, but I can't help but feel like I'm not that admirable right now. I'm just very tired. Am I as tired as do I look as tired as I feel? All right. Okay. Live chat. By the way, again, thanks for hanging out. I can't believe we got 10 people on here. Very spontaneous. It's very nice. Oh, we're gonna hang out over here because it's more comfy. I'm on the bed. Okay. Ah. Ah. Sweet. Okay. Um. Did you just send me a frog? It's ribbit. You know, if I could ribbit, I would. There is something kind of cute about reptiles, as weird as that sounds. Okay. I think the transgender movement is pretty disturbing to say the least because I think in a lot of times we have to understand that this what's called dysphoria is rooted in really psychological disruptions, you know, like severe psychological disruptions, and we need to dive deeper and start asking the questions, like, you know, if we do mess with someone's biology, if we mess with someone's actual physical body in service of the subjective understanding of that person, um, then we can do some serious damage. So I feel like we need to be very reluctant about really paying much attention to the transgender movement. I think it's another distraction from really having a healthier society in a lot of ways. Um, you know, we should be willing to ask the questions. We should say, when did you start? When did this person start not feeling comfortable for who they were? And I think if you ask those questions, you'll start to get a narrative that will come out that will kind of teach you about why they truly don't feel comfortable in their body. Um, so so I think we need to be more curious and perceptive. What kind of music? I've always been very drawn to instrumental music, classical music. I like kind of like chill music too, like Jack Johnson, Jason Mraz. I always like lyrical stuff, you know, kind of like positive sort of lyrical stuff. Acoustic guitar. Right, stop medicating children. Absolutely. It sure is crazy town. It's really something else. Sometimes, no, it isn't sometimes, but I know it's people who are transgendered who are, I think we know best, Joey. I don't think I totally understand what you're saying. I must run. Thanks for the chat. Have a good night. Thanks for hanging out, Stephanie. Insulting to dismiss what? What am I dismissing? Thank you, Ron. I'm glad you like my tired rambles. That's so interesting. Ah, yes, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach. I played trumpet in a wind ensemble for quite some time, so that's kind of where it all kind of takes root for me. Oh, I've always liked the 9-1s and the 1-9s, so someone like Mr. Rogers, Carl Rogers, those are really the two guys who I really resonated most with. I read Carl Rogers in college, and I was just like, who is this guy? Because he thinks like me, he writes like me, he's interested in the same reality I am. He wants to bring everyone together. He's very open. He's very interested in everyone's points of view. He's non judgmental. I mean, just so interesting. Sort of very aware of the existential reality to ground the psychotherapy model. I mean, that's me, like, and you start thinking about the patterns, there's a pattern there. I mean, I know people who are actually transgender, they will commit suicide before they feel they are in their right bodies. That's very, 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 very tragic. Um, it sure is a serious topic. Well, I don't think we kill anyone by having conversations about it. I think in a lot of ways when people suffer with severe, I would say severe identity disorders, like having like a very, I think any type, I mean, a lot of people suffer with this, but the extremes are probably represented with something like a gender dysphoria. Um, but I think it's important to understand that we are, as human beings, fundamentally designed to take on clarity in who we are. And I think that if we aren't comfortable in our bodies, the way that you could say biology has designed us, that can create ultimately a severe form of trauma, you know? Body, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's trauma is what it is. I think that's the most important thing for me to kind of highlight is that there's so much trauma that needs to be acknowledged and explored, and we should not bow down, you could say, to people's subjective notions, that can be one way and another way, can change very rapidly. What people need is they need stability. People need stability and they need congruence in their identity. So we need to promote more of a clarity and for people as a society. Rusty, I think I do, honestly. I think I do take on that six energy where I'm kind of like split. I'm busy, but I'm not really doing what needs to get done. I'm cleaning or something like that. That can happen. Um, Ron, nursing sort of came out of my desire for autonomy as a mental health provider. I initially looked at becoming a clinical psychologist, and I remained very interested in getting trained in psychotherapy, but I basically understood that I wanted to be able to work with psychotropics in addition to therapy. And that would give me the power, you could say, that I want, where I can really do the whole thing. I have all the tools in my toolkit. So I want all the tools. And nursing offered me an opportunity to be licensed to provide psychotherapy as well as do holistic evaluation. So I can really blend the medical model with a holistic model. Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Like when you look at people who are really mentally healthy, you have to ask, what are they doing right? And a lot of times it's because they feel like they belong. They have a sense of belonging. They have a sense of purpose. They have a sense of meaning. A lot of times they're very religious people. And with that comes a sense of really homogeneity. What in the world? A sense of really cultural homogeneity and similarity with people. Um, And this interestingly, this is kind of the opposite narrative than what's being pushed now when it comes to diversity. We sort of glorify diversity these days in higher education, but I wonder, well, we can be diverse, that's fine, but what bonds us together is not what makes us different. It's what we have in common. And what we have in common are notions of what can be abstracted from reality, the higher values, you know? Um, and yeah, it makes sense. Psychologically, what builds trust? Similarity breeds trust. Um, I spent a lot of times thinking about trust for a very long time. Thank you, Jason. I'm doing a lot better than I was. I've had a rough beginning of this program. It was very overwhelming in the beginning, like, and it's I have my moments, but I've been very overwhelmingly positive lately. I think I've been very lucky. I feel lucky. It's probably the best way for me to put it. I feel very lucky, fortunate, very blessed. I just have all these opportunities to take on that sort of role I want. I mean, before I know it, I could be in a psychiatric specialty for nursing. And goodness, I can't even imagine taking a professional role where I can be a helper, a healer. Really, I dream mostly of being able to work with families. I think that really working with the family system is what inspires me most. Um, I actually basically I want to do like a psych setting, but I don't really believe in there being too many different professional roles. I want everyone to kind of work together. I see therapy as kind of a group effort. If I'm doing one-to-one therapy with someone, it's advantageous, but it's more advantageous for that person to have therapeutic relationships with other people that aren't me, their doctor or nurse practitioner. Just because I'm one person, just because I'm one person who's good at earning your trust, does not mean it ends there. It begins with any relationship and it can continue on in various forms of different relationships. And that's where the resiliency happens. It's not in the treatment, it's in how the person takes on their own ways of learning how to relate to the world that make them healthier, make them more resilient. They get the tools themselves and then they can go to work on their own. I think my sort of desire is to teach people how to reignite those sort of, you could say like the those embers, those burning embers, that are just waiting to be sparked up. If you feel comfortable answering, how do you think having knives to your mother influenced your development? Oh boy, it's a loaded topic. Um, it gave me stability, like really, really, like gave me stability in the environment. Like I never had to worry about, food and you know clothing, and she was there. I mean, she was a presence, very strong in that respect. Like kind of stoic. It influenced me because it gave me kind of like a model, I think, for what a mother does. It gave me kind of like a model for what a mother does. And a mother, at least my mother, is very orderly and she's very empathic. She's a nurturer. She wants nothing more than to be a mother. And it's, I guess that set the stage for me to look for, the type of woman that aspires to that as well. Um, Not someone just like her, but someone who has an appreciation for the home and taking pride in the home, ordering the home, as well as truly cherishing um, the nurturing qualities of life. Uh, yeah, I don't know if it. I can't really tell if it helped me be more organized or not, but maybe it helped me be more disciplined. Her constant sort of need to have the environment clean and things like that. Like I make my bed, and it's not because of Jordan Peterson. It's because of my mother. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I have a passion for it too. I was originally going to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. I mean, it really is a love of mine. But I think psychology demands a form of theology and philosophy. There's so much more to the mind of man than what scientific methods can reveal to us. And I like asking the philosophical and existential questions that are at the core of what it means for man to have a good life. And I think those are central to true mental health and really just a healthy society. So, let's see. Okay, well, looks like I was here a lot longer than I expected, but I'm very pleasant. I was pleasantly surprised to have so many people here with me. So, thanks for, thanks. Appreciate you. You know, things are going okay over here. I'm having a pretty good experience, I think. No, I've never had social anxiety. No, at least not in the sense I would call diagnostically. Like, have I felt self-conscious before? A little bit, but I've never actually had very bad anxiety. Social anxiety, I would say. My anxiety manifests itself mostly through avoidance. Yeah, avoidance. Numbing, like a numbing. Hmm. It's not a good life to be anxious. It's not a good life. It's a very tragic life. I feel like it's so hard to love anyone and to feel loved by anyone if you're just fearful. And you can tell when you try to love someone who's very anxious. It's hard to get through, you know? It's hard to get through. Interesting. Social avoidance, yeah. I'm in Augusta, Georgia right now, Donnie. Just on the border of South Carolina and Georgia. I'm at the medical college in Georgia. I'm glad you were comfortable. My parents are Yankees. Oh, that's such a sweet question, Coral. I think women need to allow their femininity to garner the attention of men. Um, and that can come out in different ways depending on what kind of woman you are. Same for men. Um, I think we need to learn how to be more comfortable in our bodies, probably, because I think men are naturally drawn to women and women are naturally drawn to men. I think it's just a matter of paying more attention to the sexual, like really the sexual and social sort of motivations. I also really like like passive and quiet women, but I really like dominant women too. It's weird. I think I just like women, you know. Surprise. Um, yeah, it's there are a lot of different kinds of women, but I think we tend to like ourselves, you know, and to put it bluntly. I'm a pretty passive guy. I like women to be open, receptive. I can really respect dominant women and assertive women, but I feel like for me that's not really attractive. Um, but I can be attracted to women pretty much no matter what. I am a single man and I am prepared to mingle. So, no. I I'm at the point in my life where I am really trying to just get through school and succeed in that respect, and but soon thereafter I'll definitely be very very interested in creating something. Yeah, you're telling me, Roni, there's no way in hell I will ever match my mother's orderliness. That's so funny. That's so cute. I totally can relate to that. My mother has to wash the dishes first, too. Rusty, probably because they're so idealistic and introverted. It's like a form of like, all right, I'm not going to be the one to make the first move. And then in addition, I'm not even going to actually like allow this person to be a possible candidate because they're not good enough. There's always that sense of like, idealizing the prospective partner. Thanks, Jason. That's nice. Chinky shell, that's right. Ha ha. Yes. Yes, I haven't exercised in like 3 days and I can like feel it. Tomorrow we're gonna go on a run. It's gonna be great. Nice long run. I am very interested in relationships. It's one of my favorite things to really think about because I know that people who get those right are just so much healthier. I do mostly calisthenics and cardio, so I'll do pull ups, narrow, wide, and push ups. And I'll do that like to failure. And then I'll do sprints. I'll do sprints. I'll like go back between interval training and then just jogging. Really the goal of my workout isn't to like get really like build muscle. It's to maintain my cardiovascular fitness so that my brain can be healthy. It's all about the brain, you know? You also want to feel good about yourself, and it kind of helps you to have that discipline. Jinky, yeah, yeah. You're not alone. A lot of people do that. I imagine male INFPs. This is just me being like a negative Nancy, but I feel like men who are INFPs might have a harder time sort of assimilating in the society because INFPs are very, very feminine, sort of in their roles. Um, look like a reptilian. Yeah, yeah. I've met a lot of INFP men who just really kind of like you can tell they struggle socially. They like don't know where they fit, and they really want to find a place to fit, and it's just I don't know. I think I've seen that for sure. Whereas INFP women, I don't know. I feel like they're kind of admired socially, but maybe I'm just projecting. I don't know. I don't need to be identifying as an INFP. They're too cute. It makes me nervous. Oh my gosh. Wait, you're an ENFJ, right? Can we make sure we confirm that publicly? It is very cute. Oh boy, did I just delete my live stream? What the heck? Nope, I'm here. For a second I thought I deleted you guys. Maybe. Basically, I know that in relationships, there has to be one partner that is emotionally more powerful. And generally speaking, someone has to let the other partner be that person. It doesn't mean they have to be that person all the time, but there's usually one who is. But you can trade back and forth. The person who's more powerful is the one who's basically moving the person emotionally in the relationship. So, with that being said, um, I think that INFPs can be that person. It's just not necessarily something that naturally happens at first. What do I think of black male INFPs? I don't know. I think they're black and they're male and they're INFP. I don't really know what to. I mean, I imagine that they are interested in understanding the values of their cultures, probably. I think visual typing is silly. I don't really know a whole lot about. I don't really believe in like that the body itself like represents certain dispositions and all that. Princess T. I don't. However, I took Latin in high school, so I have that background. Roni, don't worry about approaching us because we're shy. Yeah, you can approach us. I love when ENFJs approach. I go more with that face, but yeah, it's more subjective. Interesting. Very interesting. Alrighty, well, what time is it anyway? You know? I think I'm gonna go to bed pretty soon. As more people join, you know? It's crazy. Alrighty, well, for future videos, if I do live stream, probably be on a Saturday, and I will make a Facebook post, or I'm sorry, a YouTube post, and I will let you know in advance, and hopefully we can get at least 10 people on here pretty quickly. We already have 15 people, which I think is more than I've ever had, so just want to acknowledge everyone and let you all know that I really do appreciate your attention. I hope you're doing okay. Emotional Angry Man. Wow, what a name. I think we've all been there, you know? Yeah, probably Saturdays would be best. But yeah, either way, what I'm saying is that I'm going to give you some kind of like foreshadowing as to when it'll happen over the status update. Honestly, I'm crying all the time inside. No one can see it, but it's there. Not really, I'm just tired. If you yawn enough, you cry. Did you know that? See? What's with the briefs thing? Yeah. I remember reading somewhere that that's like an empathy thing. Like if you yawn when people yawn, it's because like people who do that are more empathic. Yes, hashtag empathy. We should change the world with our empathy. I bet there's enough empathy in this chat room to just like save people, you know, from the depths. Yeah, cotton cloud sounds good. We're connected. You know, we influence each other. It's pretty cool. Emotional and cognitive empathy. That's a very interesting question. I don't know. I don't really know. I'd have to like research that more, but I do know that generally speaking, you can abstractly represent. You know, like you can imagine that you feel the way someone else feels in a way that isn't like allowing it to influence the way you feel, which I think is kind of interesting that we can do that as human beings. Awkward turtles? I just want to let you guys know I think you're all pretty fun. You guys seem pretty fun, to be honest. Like, really very nice. Like a fun group. Quick question: Do you guys drink as much coffee as I do, or at least like to? Like, I really like coffee. You know, it just gets me going. You know, like having a cup of coffee and then just like doing stuff. You know, like phew. Half a pot. Oh my gosh, half a pot. You're wild. You are wild. Stay hydrated. Immune. Coffee sucks. Fight me. Damn, you are hardcore. It makes me crazy. Well, pasta friend. Love that. Yes, I love pasta. What's your favorite kind of pasta? I grew up just like only wanting angel hair. I would always request angel hair. I've moved past that. I'm very much interested in linguine and fettuccine and everything else. Do you really? A whole pot? That's hard. That's too much. That's something else. Yeah, you gotta avoid the sugar. You don't want to have sugar in your coffee. Bad move. Okay, well, coming up on an hour and 10 minutes. All right, you guys, have a beautiful weekend and keep up the good work being, wonderful, sensitive human beings who are interested in ideas and want to make the world a better place. And thank you for all your support and your kindness. You're all very warm. We got into some controversial topics today, and honestly, I really like that. So I really appreciate talking about serious things. And I do have FI, so it can be pretty intense, I think. Um, but yeah, really the point of this channel is ultimately to share the serious topics, but in a way that is very open and non judgmental, so that we can kind of have a good sense of really where our ideas are coming from, you know? Roni, actually, I have really good tea right now. Like really good green tea my brother gave me from Japan. I love. Don't go. I wish we could all have green tea together. Wouldn't that be amazing if we all were like in a room and it was just the right temperature and we were all just having green tea and like relaxing. This is me idealizing, like just feeling really calm and peaceful. Yes. Ugh, I love green tea. Yeah, me too. Like really good green tea though. Ladies on the beach. Oh boy. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but that doesn't sound like a bad dream, to be honest. Maybe I will now. Okay. How do I get out of here? is this? Oh, hey, Kelly, what's up? Right? Have fun dreaming about guys on the beach. That's too funny. Are you really? It's true, though. You don't want to limit yourself to one pasta. It's a dangerous thing. Honestly, why limit yourself to any type of wonderful experience? Just keep exploring. Alrighty. Good night, you guys.